You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So, if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your, stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Tara. How to break up with the almost guy and find your right guy now. Welcome to our amazing opportunity of insight and learning. I'm super pumped for today because I have the amazing Tara G with us today. You might say, well, who the heck is Tara? Well, let me tell you, she is 38 years old. She has not yet been married. She doesn't have children. She worked with us in our 5 Keys to Becoming Irresistible program in May of 2020. She was in a relationship until June 2021. That did not work out, so we're going to listen to her experience of that. She's dating. She's from South Carolina. She is a marketing, PR, and community relations expert, and she is a soul sister to most of our listeners. And I'm super excited that you were excited to join us with your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I was really excited for Christine to reach out and make contact to kind of talk about, everything that has transpired over the past year and a half now. So
time flies, girl.
I know, right?
It really does. Really does. And you can't. So we'll get there, but. What I think is like just a super interesting point about your story, and I'm curious how this played into it, but when you came to us, like it was sort of like early COVID days, right? And so you started that process of just right there of like debunking the whole thing of like using that as a reason not to have what you want in your life. And so why don't we just start there? So like, where was your life? What did it look like in May 2020? We just kind of got out of lockdown. What was going on for you in your life?
Right. So lockdown or COVID lockdown, if you will, was pretty different here in Charleston, South Carolina, than a lot of people experienced in other places. I was fortunate enough that during COVID, my career kind of catapulted because I was put into a position that I had wanted to be in anyways, which was a position of leadership within the community. And as you mentioned, I do marketing, public relations, community relations, and all kinds of other stuff. But I work in a very fun, kind of unique industry, which is the craft brewing industry. So it, for me, ended up completely changing my life because I came out of a human resources finance background. I moved to Charleston from New York City. And all of a sudden, I found myself kind of at the center of attention of this community, this beer community, leading them forward into post-COVID, or not post-COVID, but to what opportunities were presented to us as a community who relies on people coming through our doors. And so it was a very, for me, and I'm sorry for anybody who lost somebody, during COVID, and navigating all of that with the group, with the 5 Keys group, was especially beneficial for me to use that in my career as well.
I think so. First of all, I just want to tell you this. So I interviewed this amazing guy named Rabbi Steve Leader last February. It was probably one of my favorite episodes. And the reason why I'm sharing that with you is that he talked about that as everybody, like the COVID dirty little secret for those people that like thrived, or that COVID or the pandemic created a change in their lives that was for the positive. And what he said about that, and I think this is really amazing, is that we can hold both things as true, right? Like for you, your industry had known success in only one way, Right. And it gave you the opportunities, your gifts and your talents to create new opportunities for that industry. And what I think is really amazing about that and how it relates to kind of reinventing your life is that before the pandemic, we all had opportunities to take challenges and turn them into possibilities. Mm-hmm. And what the pandemic did was say, guess what, everyone? You are going to reinvent, or you have the opportunity to reinvent everything in your life. And so there you were, you're like, you know, kind of thriving, you get like catapulted into this leadership. And what was the why that had you walk through our door and want to get into possibility with your love life?
Sure. So as I mentioned, I had moved down to Charleston from New York City, but I had taken off the year of 2018 to travel. And I went to like 15 plus countries and just kind of had my, you know, eat, pray, love moment. And when I came down to Charleston, it was like, you know, the one link that I was like, okay, you know, I've gotten the travel out of my system. I've done the, you know, the high intensity, high paying finance job in New York. And now here I am. I'm, you know, at the time was 36. And I was new to Charleston. I was back kind of throwing myself in the dating pool. And I really didn't remember how to date, I guess, you know, because New York was it's its own animal. And then coming down here and experiencing different men. And I was like, you know what, this is an area that I could use some guidance in right now, because it is just not what worked for me in the past. Did not work for me in the past, and I need new focus.
First of all, you should all write that down. What worked for me in the past did not work for me in the past. And that's what I think is so interesting, is that you have this moment where you're like, I'm in a new situation and I can do this the old way because that's what I know. But then to have the consciousness or the awareness to go and ask yourself, but why would I do that? Because it didn't get me the result that I wanted. So there must be a different way. So do you feel like you're one of those, because some people come to us and they're just like in a tremendous amount of pain. And then there's some people who come to us because they want to create opportunities. Their pain isn't excruciating, but they just have this strong desire to create something and they know there's a different way. Like, were you sort of one of those camps, or were you kind of in the middle?
I would say I was definitely in the middle. You know, like most people say, you know, I've done the work. I had done some of the work. You know, I had spent years in therapy. I had read books. I had studied my attachment style. I had, gone down every path. I tried to travel it out of me, you know, those different things. I think, and you just did a podcast on this not too long ago, about boundaries.
Right.
And that was one of the things that I really took away from the 5 Keys program, was setting up boundaries. And a lot of, you know, when you're going through that work in a different way, you're realizing that what you thought were your boundaries are actually not your boundaries, or you're not implementing them as well as you could, or maybe not communicating them to the people in your life. And so during the 5 Keys, I really honed in on what boundaries do I need to set with the people that I'm closest with, my friends, my family, to move forward in a healthy, non-toxic way.
So when you said the boundaries that I thought I had weren't the boundaries that I thought I had, elaborate on that. What were some of the mistakes or some of the things that you were doing that you didn't know you could do differently?
Well, I'm a chance giver. You know, I'm an excuse maker. I experienced a relationship with my father specifically, where, you know, he would, the way I call it is like a yo-yo. You know, he pulled me close, push me away, pull me close, push me away. And it was based on his needs. You know, I need you to be close to me because I'm going through something right now. And then when he was done, he would, you know, push me away. And I experienced that with my relationships all through my my teens and into my 20s, where I allowed a relationship to reoccur, come together, and then, oh, nope, I'm not ready for commitment, or whatever the case might be, and push me away. And that's one thing that I just don't tolerate anymore, not with him, and not with anybody else. It has to, there has to be consistency there. And I have, put those boundaries in place with him specifically, that this isn't a one-sided, you can't use me for your, so.
That's huge. So I want to talk about this, Tarah, because I think you just said something kind of profound. You'd read about your attachment style, you'd studied all of that, and I think so many of our listeners, like, they've read the book, they have the T-shirt, so to speak. And I think there's a belief that because you have this style, you can't rewire your brain to overcome that and possibly even start to shift that. But yet what you just described is completely transforming how you experience connection and attachment and doing it in a different way. Can you kind of talk about how you shifted that attachment style? And was it internal? Do you still have to remind yourself? Like, what's your journey been in shifting that attachment style?
I mean, it's always going to be work, because you love people. You can't help but to love them, and you want them a part of your life, whatever that might look like. But you have to, for me in particular, I just had to say, this is what I told myself, and you have to, and I'm going to stick to that. I'm specifically referring to just, interaction, as far as, I live in Charleston, my family lives in Oklahoma and Texas. And for a long time, and I've lived away from home for over 12 years now. So I realized that it's a lot easier for one person to come and visit than it is for multiple people to come to you. However, that is not an excuse. There has to be some middle ground. And so I do have to constantly, remind myself, I would love to do this. However, I put this boundary in place for a reason. And if I break that promise to myself, then I'm slipping right back into that behavior. And then what will I accept again? Or what will I, make a concession for next time? So
that's amazing. It is. You think about the consequences. Well, one of the things that we do when we work with people is we do that little rut exercise, right? Where you map out kind of your vicious cycles, right? So what you just described is you actually think through the consequence from a conscious place, from your adult self, of what happens if you sort of go back to those default tendencies, that default style.
And I think about, all the things that we learned in 5 Keys, the romantic rut and the little who's and stuff. Those are, I don't want to say daily battles, because they're definitely, I'm in a completely different place than I was a year and a half ago when I first, came into the program. And I just started thinking about things in a completely different way than I ever had before. And it honestly, Marni, it really did change my life.
I love that. I love hearing that. So, and I think it's okay to say, like, it's a daily battle. And I think my experience of that daily battle is more of like, and maybe you can share how it is for you, but I think about it like it's a daily intention, right? Of like, do I want to live life according to like who I really am at my truth, my essential self, right? Or am I going to sort of, life check myself, right? Like check myself and say like, what does it look like to live the most courageous life I can, where I do those things that are uncomfortable because I know it's in honor of my healing and my wholeness, right? And so, and I think it takes a lot of courage to say, there is no fucking magic pill, people. It's not like you're going to do anything and you're like, oh, yay, unless you get a lobotomy or something. There is no like, was that the eternal sunshine of whatever it is,
The
right?
spotless mind.
Yeah, exactly. Where you just like, oh, I'm done. But it's the how that you go through that sounds like it feels different. So like when you describe that for you, I don't know, does that resonate for you? Like what's it like for you to be mindful now and have been like your life changed and also be human?
Yes. I mean, I think some of that definitely just comes with age and maturity, and well, for some people, I suppose.
I was going to say, I'm like, I don't know.
I would say, I've always felt like I was a very self-aware person for starters. I am the oldest of 5 kids. I have that hero complex. My parents had me at a young age. I've always been a go-getter. I don't, if I'm unhappy with a situation, I generally make a change very quickly, no matter what the situation is, whether it be with a job or a person or whatever, I definitely live by the life is too short, and it goes by fast, creed. So, it's for me, mindfulness of, I guess, I hate using that term, the 5-year plan or the 10-year plan. But just knowing that the work every day will get you closer to where you want to be and your legacy. And I've heard you talk about, your legacy. And it's changed a lot, honestly, and I'm sure, like I said, we'll get there, but we can talk about how it's changed from a year and a half ago to where it is today.
Yeah, let's talk about, so you come into the program, it's May 2020, finish in like July-ish, and you start dating in this completely different way. And I know you met somebody pretty quickly using our strategy.
I did.
And so tell me about, how that relationship was different, and then talk about the courage it took to realize that was better than anything you ever had and also not right.
Right. Yeah, like you said, both things can be true, right? It was a great relationship, but it wasn't the relationship. It did get me closer to where I want to be. And that I'm incredibly grateful for. But I did meet somebody pretty quickly in June. I had gone on a couple of Skype dates or Zoom dates, because that was what we were all doing, which was really kind of funny, to go through that process with talking to somebody on a screen,
right,
a couple times before you meet them or whatnot. But with my relationship with Jake, we met very quickly. We didn't have like let's talk for 45 minutes to an hour or something on Zoom, because he lived right around the corner from me. So we met at a coffee shop outside. And, our first date was probably 30 minutes. We shared a cup of coffee, and I honestly didn't think too much. I was like, he's cute, he's nice, but I was dating, and, forward, 6 weeks, it was just a consistent kind of slow burn, if you will.
Yeah.
Where he gave me, as an incredibly independent, ambitious woman that I am, he gave me the space that I needed to not feel like he was trying to rush me into anything. He wasn't pressuring me sexually or anything like that. And I was like, this guy's something special, like I appreciate that he seems to have boundaries as well, and he's honoring my boundaries. And so fast forward to like mid-August, that's when we decided, we would be exclusive. And so we became exclusive, and it built from there. We spent the holidays together. I met his family. Unfortunately, he did meet some of my family later this past spring. He never got a chance to meet my parents, but just with, COVID restrictions and travel and stuff, that never did transpire. But that's okay, because we learned a lot from each other in that short amount of time. We were together for almost exactly a year. So we met in June and we broke up in June.
So let me ask you this. So we talk about, if you're an avid listener, we talk about your deal breakers, your non-negotiables. If you don't know what that is, just go back and listen to some episodes about deal breakers. And they're really amazing because they're based on like values, not characteristics. And what I mean by that is like, integrity versus, he's over 6 foot. And so you're dating, and I talk about data dating. We talk about that on our campus, collecting data, having fun, and that your job as this empowered, irresistible woman is you're like making sure he's your person rather than the old way, which is like, I hope he likes me. I hope he picks me. I hope he, I hope. So there you are, you're empowered. So if you think about like which of those non-negotiables in the end just wasn't a match, and it doesn't mean when we break up with someone in this new way of dating and being that there's a judgment on that person. It's just they're not my match. What was it, and what was like the most courageous turning point for you where you decided, you had to not settle?
This one I had battled with from pretty much the beginning, because in my non-negotiables, I had, in terms of financially secure and whatnot, I specifically put, does not need to have a formal education, i.e. a college degree, but needs to be a master of his craft, if you will, and have a solid financial situation. And as many women do find out, things along the way as they're collecting data, people present maybe one situation or present themselves in one way that's not always incredibly accurate. And as we moved along and I started learning more about him, that was the big drawback for me, was that there was not the financial security there that I would have hoped for at our age there to be. And I don't want to come off as sounding shallow or, because I wanted to be like, love conquers all, but that's just not realistic. Mm-hmm. You do have to have some sort of alignment on that. And that was pretty much, there were a couple of different things, but the biggest one for me was, as I mentioned, I'm a doer. I want something, I go for it. I'm ambitious. And I think that at the end of the day, Jake is unfortunately a dreamer and not really a great implementer. And that was one of our biggest points of contention, because when we first got together, it was, I'm working on this, I'm working on that. I've got this going on. I've got that going on. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, this guy really, knows what he wants and what he's doing. And then as, the year wore on, I was like, oh, these are just dreams that aren't being implemented, or they're not going to be implemented for some time. And I don't know that we're that much of a match that I am interested in a long-term sticking through this. And I say this with all the love in my heart. There was a lot there that reminded me of my stepfather. And I had to talk to my little who's about that insecurity.
Right. Right. And for those of you who don't, you're like, what the hell's a little who? Again, listen to that episode. But that's like that childhood wounded part of you that didn't get what they want. And so we have to know that and be able to manage those so that our adult self sort of stays in control. So you were aware of it and you were going through that kind of self-soothing process.
Right. I mean, I love my stepfather with all my heart, but I just started seeing this pattern of behavior with Jake that I have seen with my stepdad, and for my mom, like that's her person, they're a match. She's, like that's their thing, but that's not what I wanted for my future. And I could just see the long-term playing out in that way.
And I think what's really interesting too, Tara, is like, yes, there's there's this financial piece that's going on, but also, and I don't know, but I'll guess like there was one of your non-negotiables also about value, like integrity or words and actions matching or some sort of thing, right? And so that's where you're like, I got 5. Okay, like there's 1, but then also that's kind of like having a cocktail with that other one. And then you're like, wait, I'm not having 2 out of 5. And you said it brilliantly. I always say, like, because I had an ex-boyfriend who said this to me, love is necessary, but not sufficient. And in the end, like, you get to make your choice. And I really want people to hear that, because I have clients who have been in that place where they'll say, well, actually, I thought X, Y, or Z was important, but now I realize it's not a non-negotiable. It's actually something that I am willing to stick through. And it is unique for every single person. And what takes courage is to trust yourself, and then act on that. And so I'm so proud of you for understanding who he is. And the great win is for most of us who've ever been in a struggle in relationships is, you know what? It's not my job to change this person. He's probably not going to change. Is this something I'm willing to live with?
Right. Yeah. And I didn't want to change him. I mean, I want him to be happy and, if he wants to do what he wants to do, then he needs to do that and
find his person.
Find his person who's willing to do that with him. For me personally, I just needed a little more.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, I just wrote this whole essay that was in the LA Times about my journey with Jeremy of like accepting who he is. And then like at an unconscious level, once my kids left, to be like, okay, now be this person, right? Like now be ambitious, because in the way that I define ambition, be what I want you to be, because that's what I want and I need. And it's a really challenging to continue to, for me, it was like, well, I signed up for X, Y, Z, A, B, C, right? And so why do I expect something to be different? And how does he really meet me in my needs when I allow him to be who he is? And so I think this is just such a great conversation for women like us, because only we know what is right for us. And when it's that thing and then a little of this thing, and like you said, another little flag here and another little thing here, you get to do you get to do it the way you want to do it, and only you know that. And so what I hear is that you learned in working with us how to finally trust yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And to not be scared to speak my truth, as far as I've always, if I was dating somebody briefly, I didn't have any problems being like, you know what, this just isn't working out. But when you care about somebody, you love them, you don't want to hurt their feelings. You don't want to be like, well, I think you're a lazy piece of blah, blah, blah.
Right. Exactly. You're not enough for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was a great relationship, but it was just something that we both learned that we loved each other, but we weren't compatible long term.
I love that. So where are you now? Right. And what's your where are you now towards life and dating, and how are you implementing what you learned from your relationship with Jake now that you have been on this journey for a year and a half?
Yeah, well, I would say probably, maybe surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly to people who know me a little bit well, I determined in my relationship with Jake in the past year that I was always kind of on the fence about children, and that I'm 99.9% sure that I do not want to have children. So that was something that I learned just in that partnership. And it wasn't, I don't want to have children with him. It was just, you know what? I want to have a partner that I can do things with, but I want us to continue to grow and travel and live our lives. That was the biggest change for me. I'm open to marriage, but I'm not I have to have a ring on my finger. I think it's more important to share and grow and love somebody and have common values and common, ambitions and life. And that has changed for me dramatically over the past year and a half. And I feel really good about it.
Yay.
And I feel really good about where I am at right now. I am dating somebody.
Yay! That's exciting. And how long?
Yeah.
So after you broke up with Jake, given that you had sort of this new confidence and this new way of being, like, was that a pretty short process that you got back on the horse, so to speak, or how did that go?
Yeah. So, when Jake and I broke up, I did have a friend in my life that I was like, oh, this could be a possibility. And I started collecting data in a romantic way with him. We did not seal the deal or put the ding ding in the wing wing,
Right.
as you say. We just hung out, and he began to become a little bit more aggressive, sexual, kind of. And I was like, whoa, you haven't even taken me on a proper date yet.
Right.
And I kind of put it on him, and he called me like 2 days later, and he was like, yeah, you're right. Let's schedule a date.
Boundaries,
So
people. Boundaries.
Yeah. And 2 days later, he called me and said, you know what? I'm not ready to go down that path. And I knew that internally because I had learned to read the signs.
Yep.
And I thought, again, like, I was like, oh, I've always really liked this guy, but, so let's see kind of like how and that was over like a 2-month period or so. And then for like a month, I did not date or anything. And I finally was like, okay, I think I'm ready to date. And I downloaded the app, and I downloaded Hinge, and took my dating profile that we did in 5 keys and kind of applied it where I could. And I started talking to one person, and it quickly did not work out. And I was like, man, I just want to do this again. I had that like kind of discouraging feeling. And I literally like put it out in the universe. Like, I just want to meet somebody, organically, and a couple days later, I was kind of having a rough morning, and my best friend was like, comb your hair, brush your teeth, put your panties on,
Right.
get out of the house. And I was like, you're right. So I get dressed, ready, and I go down to this little pub around the corner from my house for a late lunch by myself with my dogs. I've got two girl dogs. And this guy sat down beside me, and we've been together ever since.
I
Just
love
randomly.
that. That's so
Yeah.
amazing. Because here's the thing, and this is so great, is like resiliency, right? So you're like, that didn't work, right? And it's like, wait, no, I'm going to go out and live my best life, right? And be me and connect into the possibilities. And it's so great. And so you did both that. You had the app, and then also you went out. And I think, like, for those of you who are like, I don't want to go on the apps, or I want to meet someone in real life or whatever. The thing is, it's like, push all the buttons, like create everything that you can, right?
Yeah. And I tell my girlfriends this all the time. Like, I don't have a problem like going in, sitting and having a burger by myself, a burger and a beer, and because first of all, I've traveled all over the world by myself. So I'm used to like talking to whoever will talk back to me. And, if somebody, he walked up and said, is anybody sitting here? And I was like, no, knock yourself out. I was like, as long as you don't mind my dog sitting here, as well. And he was like, no, it's cool. And we started chit chatting. And then he was like, can we grab a beer sometime? And then I was like, sure. So we exchanged numbers. The next day he said, are you available for lunch tomorrow? And I said, yes, I am. He planned in advance. And then he said, would you like me to pick you up, or would you like to meet me there? And I thought, oh my gosh, he's being a gentleman. He's offering to pick me up. I'm going to let him pick me up. And and again, so that was mid-October. So we're going almost on 2 months now.
I love it. And I just really, it's so inspired by your story because like there's that quote that says, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Mm-hmm.
And,
absolutely.
What I hear in your journey of the last year and a half is there has been the painful moments, and you have chosen to not suffer, so to speak, right? To not energetically get so connected into that pain. And that is true freedom. And I love that you said like a core value of yours is freedom. And you have created emotional freedom, which is an expression of who you are as much as, what you want your life to look like and your core value around travel and adventure and exploring and all of those things. And that to me is like the magic, right? Where you are just totally in harmony with who you really are on the inside and the outside.
Right. I had to shed that, I'm still successful. I'm still cool, even if I don't get married and don't have kids, because I'm from the Midwest. I'm from the Bible Belt, where that was like a measure of success for women. And it took me a minute to get over it, but that definitely this past year, I have stripped that completely away.
Woohoo! Oh, I love it. I get the chills. Well, I am super excited for you. You are always so inspiring. You're such an inspiration. I know we have a graduate community group and you're always popping in there and sharing your words of encouragement and support. So thank you for that. And now paying it forward to our larger, amazing Life Check Yourself community. I just really appreciate you taking the time to share and to be so vulnerable and honest with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Ladies, whatever you do it like Tarah. Life Check Yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.